So last week, the topic was working through weariness. And, well, I came up with this thought about it, that, the way it presents so much is that working through weariness is hard work. The idea that things aren't going really well, and so therefore you've got to kind of dig your heels in. We had this line from Scripture: don't get weary in well-doing. So you have this line, you go, okay, I'm going to keep doing the right thing. I'm going to keep doing the right thing, even when things aren't going so well. And it doesn't sound like any fun. And I thought, well, maybe that's not how we're really supposed to approach it in that kind of weary way, but maybe we should kind of be enjoying this ride. Maybe the downs and the ups can be enjoyed in their own way. Now, I was thinking about, so you have this up and down thing, so I thought about roller coasters. Now, as a kid, I loved roller coasters. I never had any fear of them. It was fun. And I just remember being like 6, 7 years old, and we go to this amusement park in New Jersey. It's probably about an hour from where we lived. We'd go there every year or two, and they had this roller coaster called Rolling Thunder. And it was one of these old wooden clickety-clackety things, clack, 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 clack. It smelled like you're going up for 10 minutes, and then it just plummets you down the other side. And it was the best roller coaster because it had the biggest drop of any in the park. And I remember being with my grandfather. We were in the first car of that thing together, and then stay late so we could just go again and again and again. And so years later, when I had my own son to go take on roller coasters and have some fun, we built him up, little fares, and started getting him to bigger and bigger rides as he got older. And I remember very distinctly when we were at Surfers Paradise, we went to SeaWorld, and they had this roller coaster. It wasn't so much a drop kind, but a fast one. In teaching him that he didn't have to be scared, that this thing was safe. You were buckled in, you weren't coming off, you weren't falling out. Just hang on, have fun, and enjoy the ridiculousness of the experience. And you can tell the first time through, he's terrified. But I kept trying to encourage him, talk about, woohoo, isn't this fun? This is amazing, this is great. Trying to encourage him as to how much fun he's having, even though he's terrified. In the end, it actually worked. He's now a good roller coaster kid. He loves it. And the reason you can love a roller coaster is because you know that there's safety in it. You don't normally go plunging off heights like that. But when you know that, all right, after that big old down, it's staying on the track, you're going to go back up, you're going to go around, and eventually it's going to come to a stop. That's the joy of the roller coaster, is that safety that comes with it. And when I think about our lives, we have ups and downs. And the promise that the Lord gives us is that, yes, you're going to have ups and downs. And yes, if you just stay buckled in, I'm going to bring you back to a halt. You're going to stay on the track. You won't fall out. This is going to be completely fine. It might be scary and frightening in some ways, but just hang in there and enjoy the ride. Just enjoy it. It might seem crazy to enjoy what we think are bad times in our life, but at the same time, there can be this idea that we're going to come through it on the other side, and that, yep, you went up and you went down, and you're just going to keep on going with it. I think where we get into trouble with this idea of enjoying the downs is that we go down, and for whatever reason, we get this idea in our head that there's no up. There's no up around the corner. That it's just down and ride's over. It's like, well, no, you're still alive. The ride ain't over yet. As long as you're here, the ride's still going. But I went through this myself several years ago. Before I did all the ministry stuff, I had a good job, making good money. We saved up plenty of money, and was feeling pretty good that we had saved up some money for retirement and future use. Well, me and like everybody else, it seemed like, we lost a pile of money in the big financial crisis. And I remember thinking that, oh, well, there it went. There went my chance of financial security. And as I was bemoaning my fate, as it were, I heard another preacher. It wasn't a New Church preacher, but I heard this preacher say, hey, he's talking to other people who have the same kind of situation. He says, hey, the God that gave you money once, he can do it again. You think God's got a one-trick pony? He can only do something right for you once in his life? Whatever miracle he did for you before, well, he can do a miracle for you again. It's that, down and up, not the up and down, but it's that fluctuation, that up and down we have in life. And that really resonated for me, going, oh, you know what? He's right. What God did for me before seemed miraculous. Why can't something being at the right place at the right time in the right circumstance happen again for me? For many things, we have a clue about this. If we take stock of our life, we can see that sometimes something bad did lead to something good. We see this particularly with relationships. Oh, yeah, dating this one person and that didn't work out, and you end up with this other person. Oh, yeah, that was much better. I remember a friend in high school, he's dating this one girl. New girl comes along who's prettier, so we start dating her too at the same time. Bad idea, having two girlfriends at once, and he gets caught. Girlfriend number one, who was a good friend of mine, she's heartbroken and all upset. And no, she doesn't come to me. She finds this other guy. This other guy comes from out of town. Bang, she gets with him, and now 20-some years later, they've been married for 20 years and have a pile of kids. So what seemed like a down for her worked out quite well. And we have plenty of examples of where this happens. We all experience these bad things. But sometimes we need to kind of learn to appreciate them, because it's not something that came to stay, it's something that came to pass. It comes through our life, and we just have to enjoy the ride, saying, okay, I don't know where this is going, this seems crazy, I feel like I'm plunging off a cliff here, but I know what the Lord says. There's an upcoming. I can enjoy this craziness. We all have these ups and downs. In the story in Genesis of Noah and the ark, we have a whole biblical story around ups and downs. You can imagine, you've got a flood situation, so what are the waters doing? They're going up and they're going down. And this is a symbol for the ups and downs in our life. And what I want to bring to your attention is that this story happens, and it happens in a way that's supposed to symbolize it happens repeatedly. That you don't have just one flood in your life, you have several of them. So let's take a look at this story and see what we get out of it. So this is from Genesis chapter 7. For 40 days the flood kept coming on the earth. And as the waters increased, they lifted the ark high above the earth. The waters rose and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. They rose greatly on the earth, and on all the high mountains under the entire heavens were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of more than 15 cubits. Every living thing that moved on land perished, birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind. Everything on dry land that had breath of life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out, people and animals and the creatures that move along the ground, and the birds were wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those with him in the ark. So pause here. So what's been wiped out? Well, everything. And these are symbols for thoughts, loves, things that we like, our identity. So Noah goes through this period where something bad is happening, and he is having a clean house. All the things that he feels like he's attached to get put aside, wiped out. And that can feel like a bad time. If you feel like you have a lot invested in a skill or a hobby or a talent or money or whatever it is, your job, if you have a lot invested into that and all that gets taken away, that feels like a really bad time. But we know how this story goes. There's the rainbow at the end, and I think the idea here is to say, okay, something new and exciting is coming. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days, but God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and the livestock that were with him in the ark. And he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded. Now the springs of the deep and the floodgates of heavens had been closed, and the rain stopped falling from the sky. The water receded steadily from the earth. And the end of the 150 days the water had gone down. And on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to a rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to recede until the 10th month. And on the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains became visible. So that next little reading there from Secrets of Heaven 850 shows you a few of the symbols of this. The ark rested. It's about regeneration. The 7th month is about what is holy. The 17th day of the month, what is new, and the mountains of Ararat signifies light. The idea here being that when you go through some process like this, at the end there's a light, so it's a new teaching, a new way to see it. Like in my case, it was the idea that, well, if God gave you some money before, he can do it again. That's a bit of light out of the situation. Something, because this is the 7th month, signifies what is holy, and the 17th day what is new. So you got something new, the new teaching, that's the light, and there's some regeneration that goes through in this process. It's supposed to be exciting to have that new nugget. One of the stories that I like to hang on is the David and Goliath story. That, for me, that's one of the big stories on how to deal with life, because David has 5 smooth stones, and these smooth stones are the things that you know how to use when you're feeling bad. Feeling down and depressed, you've got that truth. This truth that I picked up, hey, what God did once, he can do it again. That's the light. That's the 17th day of the month. That's the smooth stone. When you have troubles, that's what you sling out with your slingshot. If you know the end, all of the scary stuff is really very safe. If you know that, hey, I'm going to come out of this fine, you could just enjoy the ride. Say, well, this is something exciting. I mean, I don't know about you, but when we lived in the States, when a hurricane was coming, that was exciting. You didn't wish bad things to happen, property to be destroyed, but it was exciting because basically where we lived, it was a big storm, a lot of rain, a lot of wind, maybe some hail and some thunder and lightning, but we all walked away from it. You just hang out in your house for a day and watch the rains come. It was exciting. And I think that's kind of what we're going for here. So, well, maybe if you realize that these downtimes just aren't as bad as you think, that you might see them as an exciting new, giving birth to something new. Secrets of Heaven 851 talks about how this is a process that we've got to go through. That the ark rested means regeneration becomes clear from the fact that the ark means a member of the church. When therefore the ark is said to rest, it means that this member was being regenerated. The train of thought in this sense of the letter does seem to imply that the ark resting means the fluctuations following temptations have come to an end. Fluctuations, ups and downs, which are doubt and haziness concerning truths and goods, do not in that manner come to an end, but persist for a long time. From this it is clear that the continuity of thought in the internal sense is different. The substance of that thought, being arcanic, can be revealed here, namely this. After a person has undergone temptations, the spiritual man becomes the Lord's rest in the same way as the celestial man does. In the same way he also becomes the 7th, not however the 7th day, as the celestial man does, but the 7th month. The spiritual man's rest is expressed by a different word, from which the name Noah derives, which specifically means rest. So Noah means rest. It's a different kind of rest than the Adam and Eve rest, but it is rest. In this number, what I'm focusing on here is that the fluctuations do not in that manner come to an end, but persist for a long time. So these ups and downs you're going to have, they're just going to keep on happening. And we have to just realize that, okay, we're going to have these new ups and downs because Lord's trying to keep bringing new things into your life. If everything's an up, you have no reason to change, right? How is it that countries and their economies come out better from a recession than before? Well, because all the businesses that really shouldn't have been in business in the first place because they weren't providing something of real value or they weren't really efficient at what they were doing, they get weeded out. We see it in nature. After a while, you have the burn, and it brings around some new things. This is a process that happens over and over again. The last one I want to read to you is from 3696, and it really brings home this point of that as long as you can keep that end in view, that something new is coming, you can enjoy this ride. It may not feel like you can, but that's what we're going for here. Everyone at the start of his life, that is, in early childhood, is in a state of calm. But as one advances in years or grows up, he moves away from that state, for he gives himself up to worldly concerns and consequent anxious cares, caused by the desires of self-love and love of the world, and by falsities that spring from these. It is these that cause all unrest. Something very similar to this occurs with the new life with one who is being regenerated. At first he experiences a state of serenity, but as he moves on into the new life, so he moves into a state that is not serene. For evils and falsities which he has taken into himself previously now emerge and show themselves, and these trouble him, so much so at length that he undergoes temptations and trials from the devil's crew, who try all the time to destroy his new state of life. But despite this, a state of peace exists with him inmostly. But for its presence inmostly, he would not put up any fight at all, for in all the conflicts he experiences, he sees that state as the end in view. We start off happy, but as we start taking on cares of the world and worrying about ourselves, our ego, our pride, and all those things, we start to get upset and get worried. I think about myself as a teenager. I didn't care about money. There was always plenty of it. I wasn't rich, but I had what I needed. And then somewhere along the way, in adulthood, I started caring more about it and thinking it mattered more than it actually did. And so the Lord brings along a financial crisis to help weed that stuff out of me. And so long as I can see that these problems are just an exercise to get a new teaching or a new perspective, it's okay. I can remember the serenity that I had before and say, okay, well, that's the target place. I need to get back to that. And to get there, well, you got to go through that valley. These ups and downs can be exciting. Because you know you're going to have them, right? We know we're going to have them. And I think a lot of people make that mistake of believing that you've got to have quantity of ups versus quantity of downs. You got to have more ups than you have downs. And if you get that ratio just right, the scale will tip in your favor and you'll be happy. But I think the psychology and what the Word teaches is that it's not a matter of how many ups and how many downs you have. It's more about how you navigate between those ups and downs. When you're going to have your ups, you're going to be up. But when you have that down, can you handle that down with that calm, cool, and collected mind that you had when you were up? Can you navigate that so it's not quite so down, but just go a little bit down, even it out a little bit? That's really where the magic is. Because good things happen to everybody and bad things happen to everybody. If you can enjoy the ride and keep your mind focused that this is going to be all right, you will be happy and you will be able to keep that state of peace even when the world around you is in a stormy, floody place and everything else is being wiped out. Because you'll know, just like with that roller coaster, that this track keeps on going. This is scary, but it's safe. And in the end, the ride will come and you'll get out and you say, wow, wasn't that something special? Amen.